2629 Bravo Charlie, Wilmington approach, Wilmington now 7029 ring 9.
Today we are located at the First Flight Airport in Kill Devil Hills on the scenic Outer Banks of North Carolina. Let's jump in today's flight in what I think is a great little airplane for some scenic flying along the North Carolina coastline. This is the JustFlight version of Piper's PA-28RT-201T, otherwise known as the Aero 4. Introduced in 1979, the Piper Turbo Aero 4 is a 4-place retractable gear aircraft with a 200 horsepower fuel-injected turbocharged Continental horizontally opposed 6-cylinder engine. The Aero 4 features the eye-catching T-tail that resembles other aircraft in the Piper line at the time. The panel is equipped with the classic 6-pack of steam gauges, which are highly detailed and easy to read from the normal pilot's view. Our panel has been upgraded with the Garmin GTN 750 by RealityXP. Turbo Aero 4 can cruise at a maximum speed of 152 knots and has a range of 695 miles. The service ceiling is 20,000 feet. Okay, enough of that. I think we've kicked the tires enough, so climb aboard, buckle up, let's go flying. Alrighty, welcome aboard. This is FS MaNiA's Flight Nonstop 2. Oh, that's right, I have not told you yet where we're nonstop to. Let's pull up for flight and we'll show you where we're going. So right here we are at First Flight Airport, and this is our route. And it looks a little convoluted. I do realize it's not direct, but the reason is because there's lots of restricted area for Cherry Point, which is down in here around Havelock, and also Camp Lejeune near Jacksonville. And I also wanted to just explore the Outer Banks on the way down to our destination, which is at the mouth of the Cape Fear River, and it's Kilo Sierra Uniform Tango, otherwise known as Cape Fear Regional Jetport, otherwise known as Southport. And let's cut on our master switch, check in on our fuel quantities. They look good. We'll set our tank to the left for starters, and let's bring up our Garmin. There we go. Continue, 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 and let's go in here and see. I want to cut on AWAS. And I believe that is Dare County Regional. They do not have AWAS.
Dare County Regional weather.
Yep, that's it.
Wind 040 at 5, visibility more than 10. Sky conditions 4,200 scattered, temperature 14, dew point -14. Altimeter 2992.
2992. Activate our flight plan. There we go. And
Dare
winds
County
are
regional weather.
favoring
Wind 040 at 5, visibility
runway
more
3.
than 10.
Okay,
Sky conditions 4.
that's enough of him. We're good on our fuel recognition lights. We're going to cut those on, let everybody know we're getting ready to start. So we'll bring our prop up into the let's see, I did tell you guys, yeah, bring our prop up into, never mind, bring our prop up into the full position and our mixture up into the full rich position, and we'll crack our throttle open about 1/2 inch, and we're going to use our primer. We can use our fuel pump on low and our mixture to prime it, but we've got a primer that will do the job right here. You can see our fuel pressure went up, so just about 3 to 5 seconds of that. Clear prop. Look around, make sure there's nobody in the way, and mags are here. Hard to see, but we got them. She fired up. Oil pressure is up, and we'll reduce power to idle around 1,000 RPMs for warm up. Got fuel flow and oil pressure. Clear on the left and clear on the right. Parking brakes off.
Approaching runway 03.
Roger that. Alright, parking brake set. Altitude mode, whenever we take off, the Garmin GTN 750 will take care of that for us. Pitot heat goes on, landing light goes on, and fuel pump, we'll put that in low for takeoff. And I believe we're good to go there. First flight traffic, Aero 23 Kilo, departing runway 3, first flight. So, taking off, what we're going to do, line up here. We're going to hide our yoke so that we can see our manifold pressure gauge down here. And what we're going to do is come up to 2,000 RPMs, release the brake, and then advance the manifold pressure over to as close to 40 as we can get it, while we're still watching the runway and watching our airspeed and all of our gauges. So that's the drill. And I'd like to advance it fairly slowly, give the turbocharger time to catch up. There's 60 knots, 70, 75, we'll rotate. Positive rate, gear coming up. Climbing out about 90 knots, get 400 feet above the ground. We will pull our power back to about 35 inches. And we'll set our prop on about 2550. Whiten it up just a little bit, climb out straight ahead to 1,000 feet. So pretty good climb performance, about 1,200 feet a minute right now, a little less than 90 knots. And we'll go ahead and start our turn on course. Now that we're heading in the right direction, we'll increase our airspeed. coming up on 2,000 feet. Level our wings. Trim the nose down just a little bit. And we're going to reduce our RPMs back to about 2450 for the climb. And as we climb, we'll keep increasing our power to hold that manifold pressure about 35 inches for the climb. And I think it's fine to go ahead and start leaning back. And let's ditch our landing lights and our fuel pump after takeoff, and we'll bring our mixture back to about a 12 gallon per hour flow. And coming up on 3,000 feet, and all set up to intercept our course. Everything is right with the world. Our transponder did go to altitude mode automatically for us. What we want. There's 3,000. We're going to go to 3,500 if I didn't already mention that. There's our altitude. We're going to level us off here. Let's get our autopilot on. Trim down just a little bit more. And turn on course. Need to gain about 50 feet or so and come back to the left. I overshot my course. That's what happens when you're talking instead of flying. No worries, we'll get it back. Alright, there's our 3,500 feet. So there is the altitude hold click spot, the Piper name right there. So our altitude is set right now, and I'm going to sync up the heading bug with our current heading. I didn't do that. I actually synced it up with our compass, which is still good, but sync it up with our heading right there, and we'll hit heading mode. And now the autopilot will capture the heading, even though somewhere along in there looks pretty good. And we're going to come back to 2,400 on our RPMs. There we go, quietened it up. Real nice for us. And we're just about on our course line. In fact, we are on our course line. Based on that, looking at the CDI down here, headed to Zolman, 137 knots ground speed. We've got a little bit of 9-knot crosswind from the left, and we're 15 miles away, and all is well with the world. So right now you can see the GPS is telling us to turn right to heading 214 in 7 seconds. So the way we're going to do that is disengage heading mode, come over here to the roll, bank the airplane over to heading 214. Standard rate turn. .200, 210, and we'll level the wings. And now we want to sync up the heading. There we go, and we can go back into heading mode. So that's how I turn the airplane. way easier than using the heading bug to slew. And the real airplane, it would be easy to use the heading bug, but this thing is so sensitive. This is what happens. I do that a lot. So anyway, we're on course right now, and our next stop, I believe, is Hatteras, is at our 12 o'clock. And there is over here Hatteras Inlet. Look at the iPad, and you can see Hatteras Inlet right there. And this is Billy Mitchell Hotel Sierra Echo Airport, 3,000 foot runway. And so when we get about a mile from the waypoint, we will get a message here to make a turn. We're doing with an 8-knot tailwind right now, 143 knots, not too shabby. I just switched fuel tanks at the top of the hour. We're on the right tank right now, so I like to switch them every 30 minutes. There's our message to turn, so come off the heading mode and we'll roll the airplane over, bank the airplane to our heading, which is 256 is what they're looking for. There's 240. 250, and we'll roll level, sync up our heading. Okay, so next stop, Ocracoke, and I will check back in with you there. So we're about 6 miles from the Ocracoke Airport, Whiskey 95. I believe that's it, right there off the nose. And then right in here is the village of Ocracoke. And you can sort of see over in here, there's some water. There's a feature in here, a lake. It's called Silver Lake, but it's basically just a really nice anchorage for folks to use. Fun fact, as a matter of fact, a gentleman by the name of Edward Teach used that as one of his favorite anchorages. And Edward Teach, aka Blackbeard the Pirate, and this was the place where Blackbeard met his demise. He was killed here by troops from Virginia back in 1718, and that happened. Probably he was anchored up in there because it's actually a really great anchorage. In fact, I have anchored there myself. I took a trip with my brother from Oriental in a sailboat. It's about a 35-mile trip. It takes all day in a sailboat because you're doing 5 knots per hour. And but we sailed from Oriental, which is on the Neuse River, across the Pamlico Sound, and anchored up right there in Silver Lake at Ocracoke. So we are approaching Shackleford Banks. We're about 8 miles out right now. It's time to think about changing our fuel tank. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'll cut the fuel pump on to the low setting, and we're on the right tank. We'll come back over here to the left tank, and we want to make sure our fuel pressure, which is right behind the yoke there, is still good. I believe it is. You can always double check. Yes, everything's good with that, so we can cut this off. And I'll talk a little bit about Shackleford Banks. This is Shackleford Banks right out here, and Cape Lookout. This is the Cape. There's the lighthouse out here. This is part of the Cape Lookout National Seashore. It's considered the southern end of the Outer Banks. And Shackleford Banks is a pretty popular tourist destination. Folks from Beaufort and Morehead City, there's Beaufort Inlet over here, Morehead City, Harkers Island, that area come out. The only way to get out here is by boat or ferry, and it's well known for containing a herd of feral horses that roam there called banker horses. And the manner that the horses arrive is still a mystery. It's assumed that they may be descendants of Spanish Mustangs that survived a shipwreck. Looking at the iPad, I can see I need to come to the left just a little bit, so we'll fix that. And now we are headed basically out to sea, as you can see. So Atlantic Beach and Salter Path and Emerald Isle all in this area right here. We're going to be, there's Jacksonville, Camp Lejeune. We're going to be about 15 miles offshore. So my plan is, since we're going offshore that far, that we will climb. And there's clouds up there, so I'm going to probably climb above them to about 8,500 feet, which we should be on an even altitude since we're heading in a westerly direction. We actually started off in a easterly direction, but anyway, that's my excuse. So we're going to climb up either 6,500 or 8,500. We'll see where the tops of those clouds are, and that'll give us plenty of altitude in case something happens, engine quits, and then we'll plan our descent into Southport. So I'll check back with you. Okay, just want to check back in with you. We are now currently at 8,500 feet, cruising at a 157 knot ground speed with a 15 knot tailwind. So climbing has its advantages, and what I want to do is we're going to use the VNAV function of the Garmin to help us plan our descent into Southport. So we'll set that up right now. We'll go over to the flight plan page, and at KSUT what we'll do is put in a elevation, and we want to be at pattern altitude, so that's 1,000 feet, and we'll enter that, and we want to do that 5 nautical miles before we get there, so we'll enter that. And so we have now set in, let's save it. And there it is. We have an altitude 5 nautical miles before KSUT. We have a waypoint built in for us there. So if we go back to our utilities page, we look at VNAV, you can see we have right now 11 minutes to top a descent. That's at 836 feet per minute descent, and let's make it 600. And that will change things to now we have 8 minutes before we descend. So that's fine. I'm going to hit our home button here, go back to the map, and when it's time to descend, we'll get a message there, and we'll be all set. Okay, so we are nearing our top of descent, which you can see right there. We should be getting a message here momentarily. We're cruising along at 158 knots, 16 knot tailwind. That's nice. But
vertical track.
there's the message and audible, and also over here, top of descent in 1 minute. So to get there, hide our yoke, and we will click off our altitude hold and a little bit of nose down trim. And what I like to do in the descent, as we're approaching the airport, and we want about 600 feet a minute, give or take there, so try to get it trimmed up for that. I like to start bringing the power back and reducing the manifold pressure about 1 inch a minute or so, so that by the time we get to the pattern in Southport, we should be about 25 inches. That's a good setting for the pattern, I have found. And we will check in, get the AWAS and all that on the way down. But so we're heading down now. So we are 30 miles out, no big hurry to get there. 600 feet a minute should do the trick. What we'll do also is go to our flight plan and click on this waypoint right here, get the information, the frequencies, and let's set the AWAS up right there. We'll switch it. There it is. The other thing we'll do is put the Unicom in there, and we're all set.
Destination AWAS is 124.175.
Yeah, we got that. Select runway, that's what we want. Okay, 5. Runway 5.
Altimeter 2992.
And let's see if it won't tell us. There we go. There's a traffic pattern advisory, and we are going to go direct midfield and add that to our route. Let's close that, and now let's close the flight plan. You can see that we literally have a track to follow for the traffic pattern, which is kind of cool. I like that. Okay. Check the iPad here, we're right on course. And so here's Ballhead Island out here. Here's the Cape Fear River running up through there. In fact, you can see it right out of our windshield. There is the Cape Fear. And off to the right there is Wrightsville Beach, Wilmington, of course, off in the distance. Also Carolina Beach and Curry Beach. All those beaches right along through there, and in Ballhead Island. So at this point, I think I'm going to ditch the autopilot, and we'll fly the rest of the way in by hand. We don't need no autopilot. And I'm going to swing the airplane out to the left a little bit so we can not have to make such a tight turn to get into that pattern. Probably my next flight, it will be an FSX flight. I think it'd be fun to compare. I see the beacon of the airport over there. And Ballhead Island, that's the marina, which is this altitude not all that impressive. So let's focus our attention on getting down. So we want to be at 1,000 feet to get in the pattern. And let me see where we are. I got to talking about X-Plane and Flight Simulator, but FSX, they're both actually extremely nice simulators. When the new one comes out, Microsoft, that's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. Let me make a radio call. Cape Fear traffic, Aero 23 Kilo. We are 3 miles to the south, inbound landing. We'll be entering the pattern. Crosswind midfield, runway 5, Cape Fear. And we're just about midfield here. Crosswind for runway 5, There's the airport. Pretty as you please. And just looking at everything there, we're pretty much perpendicular to runway 5. So we're going to go ahead and bring our mixture up and get our landing light on and our fuel pump on, and we're going to bring our prop up. It's just part of our GUMPS check. A little bit of nose up trim. The thing in Flight Simulator is always hard for me is to get the trim set, because you don't really get the feedback like you do in the real airplane. Cape Fear traffic, Aero 23 kilo, turning left downwind, runway 5, Cape Fear. One thing nice about a low wing is being able to see the airport when you're in a turn. Gauge where you are. And we'll roll out on a heading of 230. Push our nose down, keep from climbing. And we're pretty much a beam of the numbers. We'll go ahead and drop the gear here and put in some flaps. We're at 25 inches. We're just going to hold that. Gear's coming down. Degrees of flaps, and I see 1, 2, 3 greens, and I'm going to trim the nose up a little bit right here. And let's see, so when we're about 45 degrees from there, that's where we want to start our base turn, so we'll go ahead and start that now. Out here over Oak Island and the coast, Atlantic coast right there. $500-foot-a-minute descent looks good. Airspeed's about 90 knots. Rolling out, and there's their airport. And I don't want to get too low too far out, so I'm not going to drop any more flaps just yet. Keep my descent slowed down, and we'll start our turn in. It's probably one of the harder parts in the simulator is trying to get this turn from base to final judged, because it's hard to have all the visual cues that you need. And we'll go ahead and get our second notch of flaps in, shallow our turn up, and let's get lined up with the runway. Definitely not there now. There's the bridge going
1
from
mile final runway 05.
Cape Fear traffic, Aero 23 kilo, 1 mile final runway
500.
5. And our last notch of flaps there is 40 degrees. Ease off on our power, and let's get that nose on the end of the runway there. And we've got a 5-knot wind, and about 75 knots across the numbers is good. Make sure we don't hit these trees. There's 70 knots. She nose over a little bit. Add just a touch of power. And we'll start transitioning now and easing that power off. Power all the way back back on that elevator and hit those brakes. See if we can make this turn off. Yep. Alright, I'll take that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Southport, North Carolina, home of the North Carolina July 4th Festival, which we're not going to have this year thanks to COVID-19. But we can still celebrate the 4th anyway. Happy 4th of July. Because it's this Saturday, actually. So, welcome to Southport. Right, we are clear of the active. Cape Fear traffic, Aero 23 Kilo is clear of the active. And let's get our flaps up. And we can cut off some stuff here. Pitot heat, landing light off, fuel pumps off. And check for traffic. We are clear and we'll taxi into the ramp. Yeah, so, I mean, really, X-Plane for me, it's great. Now, there was a learning curve, I must admit. It took me a while to get familiar enough with it to make a video, for one thing, but also to get everything set to where I could make it look as good as I could make it look. And I'm sure there's other things I could do besides what I have done, but it definitely looks better than it did when I started, just with the default X-Plane right out of the box. But it is, I think it's a nice simulator. So let's see if we got a place to park over here. Yep, I think we'll just park right there. How's that look? Pretty good. Come on up just a little more. Right about there, should be good. Okay, set our brake. Brake is set, and let's cut off some avionics. Avionics there, ADF, transponder comes off, and pitot heat is off. Got recognition lights to go. Cut off the panel lights. And let me slide that out of the way a little bit. That's off. Okay. And now we'll bring our mixture down and I'll show you. Let's see if I can hit that little click spot right there. Now, prop down, throttle's closed, and master switch off. Mags off, fuel selector off. There we are. Okay, welcome. Thank you for flying with FS MaNiA. Appreciate you coming along. We will definitely see you on the next trip, and I'm not going to get out just yet, but thanks for flying with me, and until the next one from FS MaNiA, so long.